Welcome to the Sessions with Dolly. In the last session, we discussed Tabo's plan to write a proposal. In this and the next sessions, we'll be discussing into detail the contents of Tabo's proposal. So this will be a 4-part episode. Let's get on it. But firstly, let's just recap on what he had planned to include in his proposal. Remember, we had the statement of the problem, the justification of the study, the research questions, the source of data, and the analysis methods. So in this session, we'll just be covering the statement of the problem and the justification of the study. So let's start with the statement of the problem. So what is the statement of the problem? So the statement of the problem is a clear, concise, and specific summary of the problem being addressed. It provides a brief understanding of the problem at hand. So it kind of just contextualizes the problem, and it asks the question, what do we really know about the problem? So let's see what type of statement of the problem could be. So here's an example of what his statement of the problem could be. And as you can see here, it's just giving a brief summary of what the problem actually is. It's very clear, it's very specific, it's very concise. So it talks about the major concern all around, and not just in the school where he's going to be submitting his proposal, but to the educational sector as a whole. And I think that will actually convince the principal that your school is part of the problem. So this is the problem that we're trying to solve overall. So now let's go on and discuss the justification of the study. So what is the justification of the study? So the justification of the study also builds onto your statement of the problem. So it adds onto that. So it just considers the relevance and importance of knowing more about the problem that the study is going to address. So we talked about the problem. Okay, like here is the problem. So if we already know the problem, what's then the use? So that's where now you're justifying the use of knowing more about the problem. It goes into the gaps that your study is aiming to fill, because if we know the problem, then what are you going to do? So it just builds onto, okay, your study is trying to fill the gap. Are you contributing to maybe a new knowledge with the problem? Maybe there's something with that problem that we know, but maybe there's new understanding or new knowledge that will support that we need to know. Or maybe you're bringing in new methods of finding out about the problem that maybe people haven't really explored more. So it then asks the question, why do we need to know more about the problem? So again, let's just see what Tabo's justification could be. So here's an example of what he could write as a justification for his study. And here you get the sense that it's bringing in why we actually need to know about the study. So we talked about, okay, we have this unregulated movements that are posing a risk to students. So we know the problem, so why do we need to know more about it? And so his justification is that some people or some studies have attempted to study this, but there's still that lack of understanding, the lack of data. So it means that he wants to provide more data so that we can actually learn more about the problem. And actually, here is what is more important now of the relationship between the unregulated movements and the absence of a tuck shop. So he wants to understand why, how these are related. Maybe other studies haven't explored that relationship yet, because remember, the statement of the problem is like, okay, fewer interventions are being made. So even though like some are there, but there's still this lack of data to see, but we're still seeing a rising in unregulated student movement. So maybe there's a gap that he's trying to fill off. I think that people are going out because they want to actually buy some snacks that are not available here in the school, and that's what he's saying to justify studies. And the other key elements of the justification of the study is trying to show the impact that your study could have. So if you see here in the end, it talks about that understanding how this two aspects of the tuck shop and the unregulated movements correlate will help provide practical recommendations and improvements. So you're not just saying, okay, I'm going to just do the study and understand it, but what impact are you going to have on this study that you're trying to do? So that is the justification of the study. So in the part 2 of this episode, so remember, we are doing a 4-part series where we'll still be digging into this proposal. So in part 2, we'll be discussing the research questions. So yeah, stay tuned on that. It'll be coming soon.